Good morning, Year 3. Welcome to the third lesson in our science topic, all about how plants grow. Last lesson, you will remember that we were looking at how water is transported from the roots up through the stem through a process of capillary action. And today we're going to be looking at what happens in the leaves of the plants. So our objective today is to identify and describe the functions of leaves in flowering plants. Okay. So we're going to go through the slides and then we're going to draw a diagram showing how the plant makes its energy, and then we're going to do some writing after that. So we've got lots of exciting things to do today. Okay, so food is a store of energy. All living things need energy to grow and survive. Animals need to eat plants and other animals for energy, but plants produce their own food. So plants don't need to eat anything like we do. Now I'm going to test you a little bit here. Do you know all of the things that plants need to grow? So we've looked at some of these before, especially if you're in fern class, because we did some growing, didn't we, last term. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video now and have a think, or if you're with somebody there, have a little talk about the things that you know that a plant needs to grow. Okay, pause now. All right, welcome back. I am sure you had some amazing ideas there. I really do miss sitting on the carpet with you and listening to all of your wonderful ideas. Hopefully we'll be able to get back to that soon. In the meantime, I'm going to have to just assume that you had some great ideas there. So let's have a look. Plants need water. Plants need mineral salts. Now, mineral salts are found in the soil, and they dissolve in water, which the plants then take in through their roots. So when the plants are taking in water, what they really want is the mineral salts, the chemicals that are inside the water. They also need sunlight, and they need carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is a chemical which is found in the air. So we need oxygen, don't we, as humans, and all animals need oxygen, and we breathe out carbon dioxide. Whereas plants breathe in carbon dioxide and they breathe out oxygen. So these are the four things that plants need to grow. They need water, mineral salts in the water, sunlight, and carbon dioxide. So how do plants use these things to grow? So here's our picture of a plant. We can see there the water going in through the roots. It's being transported through capillary action up through the stem and into the leaves. But it doesn't stop there. Once the water's got to the leaves, they lose a lot of water that they take from the soil through tiny pores in their leaves. And the water evaporates through these pores. So there's two really important words there. The first one is pores, and pores are tiny, tiny little holes. And we actually have them as well on our skin. When you sweat, when you're too hot, and you get water in your skin, that's coming out through your pores, and that's also evaporating into the air. And evaporate means water turning to a gas, to a vapor, and leaving the plant or leaving your skin. So what's happening is the water's coming in through the roots, up through the stem, into the leaves, and then it's turning into vapor, which is a bit like steam, and it's evaporating off the plant. So these pores are also important because the leaves need to take in air and sunlight to make their food. Now this process is called photosynthesis, and that is a really important word, so we need to learn this. You can break that into two words: photo, which means light, and synthesis, which means to make. So they're making their energy from light, and only plants can do that. We can't do that. Okay, so in the leaves of the plant, they have a chemical called chlorophyll, and that is the chemical that the plant uses to turn sunlight into energy. And it's also what makes the leaves of the plant green. So there's some really important words there. We need to know the word photosynthesis, which is the way that the plant makes energy, and we need to know the word chlorophyll, and that's the chemical that helps the leaf to make energy from sunlight. So here's an interesting question. How do seeds start to grow if they are in the shade or under the surface of the soil? it's harder for light and air to reach them there. So if we know that the plant makes its energy in the leaves, how can the seed grow if there is no light there to make energy? Pause the video now and have a think or a talk with whoever you're with about what you think might be happening there. Okay, welcome back. Yeah, I'm sure you had some great ideas there. Let's have a look. So the seeds actually contain a small store of food that the plant uses to start growing. And this means that it does not need light and air straight away. So it actually gives the seeds a little bit of food, just enough to grow some shoots for the roots and a shoot up out of the soil until it can start making its own energy through photosynthesis in the leaves. Okay, so there were lots of really important words there, so we're going to quickly review our new vocabulary, and this is something that I think is important to do after you finish the video. Keep coming back to this slide and you can learn these words because we need to know these for this topic. Really important science words. Okay, so our first word, mineral salts. Mineral salts. And they are nutrients in the water that plants use to make energy. Mineral salts. Capillary action. This is from last lesson. Capillary action is the process that transports water up the stem. That's the way that the leaves get the water up from the roots and up through the stem. Pores. So we've just learnt this. Pores are the tiny holes on the surface of the leaf. And so if we remember, through the pores, water leaves the plant and also air enters the plant. So they're really important for the whole process. Evaporate. Evaporate is the way that water changes into vapor, into gas, and then it moves from the plant and into the air. And actually, evaporation happens anytime you dry something. If you have wet clothes and you hang them out to dry, the water is evaporating off them. So it's going from a liquid and it's turning into a vapor, and it's leaving the clothes, and it leaves your clothes nice and dry. Carbon dioxide. Okay, so this is, of course, the chemical in the air that the plant uses to make energy. Carbon dioxide. Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. So the chemical made in the leaves which lets the plant make energy from the sun. So it's really important, and that's what makes the leaves of all plants green. So without chlorophyll, they wouldn't be able to turn sunlight into energy. Okay, so they are 6 really important words that you need to be learning. And you can do that, you can test yourself. Maybe you could incorporate that into your handwriting, because we're going to be using those to write throughout this topic. Oh, there's one more. Oops, I forgot the last one. Photosynthesis, maybe the most important one of all. Photosynthesis is the process of making energy from sunlight, mineral salts, and carbon dioxide. So when the plant takes in carbon dioxide, sunlight, and mineral salts, and it makes energy, we call this photosynthesis. Okay, so we've got 3 tasks to do today. The first task number 1, is to draw and label a diagram showing how plants use photosynthesis to make energy. So let's do that together, I think. Alright, so for this 3 tasks, you're going to need a piece of paper. So you should have your exercise books. If you don't have that now, then pause the video and go and get one. And you'll need a pencil or a pen as well. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, of course, is to write our date and our LO. So, what day is it today? It is Thursday. So I'm going to put my date. It's Thursday the 30th of April. And then my LO, if you remember, is 2. going to take the sound off anyway.
I always forget to charge mine. So for me, definitely a charger. Always have your passport in some kind of holder, because I think travelling sometimes you might pick up a magazine or some drinks or bits at the airport, and you constantly find yourself rifling through. As if you have quite a bright passport cover, always try and put it in the zip part of the bag, because then you know you can just go to it straight away.
Could you...
Huh?
I was just going to ask to turn that off. Okay, so once we've got our date and LO, remember we need to underline those. I don't have a ruler at home for some reason, so I'm just going to use a book, but I'm going to be really, really careful. I'm going to put the book exactly on the line, and I'm going to make sure my pencil's on the line, and I'm going to hold my book firmly in place, and I'm going to draw my line. And I'm going to underline my LO as well, just like if we were in school. Nice, smooth, straight lines. Okay. So we need to draw our diagram of a plant. So what I want you to do is count lines down from your LO. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think 12 is enough. And on this line, we're going to draw our surface of the soil. You don't need to use a ruler on this because the soil's not flat, but if you need to, then you can. So, underneath the soil, we've got our seed, and we know that the moisture has softened that, and out from the seed, first of all, we've got a shoot of the root, which splits and keeps splitting and branches off so it can get as deep into the soil as it can, so it can get all of that water. Okay, and we know that it's got enough energy to do this, don't we? It's stored in the seed. And after the root, it's going to put up its shoot. So it's all of this so far, it's using its own energy that the plant has given it from last year. Okay, so we're going to go up the stem now. And we're going to give our plant some leaves. Now, because we're doing a diagram, it doesn't have to be a work of art. The important thing with diagrams is that it's clear to understand. So we don't need to worry about detail, we don't need to colour it in. So there's my plant with its leaves. So, we know that there is water and mineral salts in the soil. So I'm going to write that. I'm going to use a pen because it's easier for you to see, I think, with this camera. So in the soil we've got water, and in the water we've got mineral salts. Okay, and they are going from the soil into the roots. We know also that the water is then transported up the stem through a process of capillary action. My handwriting is not very good today because I've got a camera in front of my face and it's a bit awkward, but I expect you to be doing your best handwriting for this, please. Okay, so we've got our roots, we've got our stem, and we've got the water and mineral salts coming in through the roots, up the stem, and into the leaf. Now, we know that in the leaf, we have lots of tiny, tiny little holes called, that's right, they are called pores. Now, these pores are so small you can't see them, but because it's a diagram, I'm going to make them visible so that we can label it. So, these are the pores in our leaves. So once the water has come up from the stem into the leaf, we know that the water evaporates out of the pores. But we also know that something goes into the pores as well. That's right, so we're going to draw the sun here, and then we're going to label that sun. And then I'm going to draw some nice arrows. And sunlight is going into the leaf. And something else is going into the leaf as well. That's right. You've got air going into the leaf as well, and through the pores. Okay, so let's follow our diagram. So we know that water and mineral salts are going in through the roots, they're being absorbed into the roots, and they're moving up through the stem through capillary action. And then once it gets to the leaf, the water evaporates, and it's leaving behind all of the mineral salts that the plant needs. So in the leaf now you've got the mineral salts, and then the pores absorb the sunlight and they absorb the air. And inside the leaf, energy is made through a process of, that's right, photosynthesis. Photo meaning light, synthesis meaning to make. So inside the leaves are like little factories, and they're taking in the air, the sunlight, the mineral salts, and they're using a special chemical, which we know is called, that's right, it's chlorophyll. So inside the leaves, we've got chlorophyll, and that's helping to make energy through photosynthesis. All right, so I'm going to leave you now to do your own diagrams of a plant. Remember to count down in 12 lines, because we need to do some more writing underneath here for task 2. Okay, good luck. Okay, so by now you should have a lovely diagram that's been labelled showing the way that leaves produce energy through photosynthesis. Our next task is to use the information that you've got from your diagram to write some statements about this process of photosynthesis. So you've all got on the website, or some of you have got paper copies, the worksheets that go along with this. I'm thinking that because not everyone has a printout of them, we should just be doing these in our textbooks, which is why I'm writing it out and drawing it. So underneath your diagram, we're going to write a series of statements all about photosynthesis. So at the end of this page, we will have a diagram showing photosynthesis, and we will have written all about how photosynthesis works. So I'm going to write underneath my diagram, I'm going to write 2, because this is the second task, and actually I'm going to go back and I'm going to write 1 there, because that's the first task, just to remind me. Now, if we look at our word bank on the worksheet, we've got the words air, pores, chlorophyll, sunlight, roots, green, and leaves. So we need to think of some sentences that we can write using those words to describe the process of photosynthesis. So I'm going to write the first sentence, and then I'm going to leave you to do your own, and then we're going to come back and check those later. So I think I'm going to write, first of all, I'm going to write about the pores on the leaf. So I'm going to start by saying the leaves of flowering plants have tiny pores all over their surface. Okay, that's my first sentence. Now your task is to go and use the words in the word bank and write a description of the process of photosynthesis. Okay, good luck. Okay, so I've written mine now, and we can read that together. If you've done something different, then that's fine. Okay, and as much detail as you can add into this is great. So if you know anything extra about plants and about this process, then you can add those in. So I've written that the leaves of flowering plants have tiny pores all over their surface, and I've underlined these words that were in my word box just to remind me that they are important words. You can do that if you want. The leaves of flowering plants have tiny pores all over their surface. Water that has been taken in by the roots evaporates through these pores. Plants make a substance called chlorophyll in their leaves. This chemical is used to turn air and sunlight into food for the plant. It also makes the leaves green in colour. Okay, so now, once you've got your diagram and your description of photosynthesis, I think it's a good idea to pause the video and tell somebody in your house, whoever's sitting with you. So if they're not around now, then you can just wait. There's no rush to do this. And have a go at explaining to them how photosynthesis works in the plant. How does the plant make energy through photosynthesis in its leaves? Okay, and once you've done that, you can come back to the video and we're going to do task number 3. Alright, so task 3, we're going to use everything that we've learnt so far and we're going to make a little story about the life of a plant. And so if you look at the worksheet that is on the internet, on the website, you can see that there are these statements that are in the wrong order. So your task, if we were in school, would have been to cut out the statements and put them in the right order, but because most of you don't have a printed version, we're going to write them down instead, which is great practice for our handwriting, and it also helps us to remember the things that we are learning. So there are 5 statements here. I will leave you to read them yourself, and then I'm going to start you off on writing them down, and then I'm going to leave you to it and to do that independently. Because I know that this is going to take up quite a lot of space, I'm going to turn my page and I'm going to start on the next page, and I would recommend that you would do that. And because it is... How do I do that? There we go. Now because it's the same lesson, we don't need to put a new LO or a new date, but what I am going to do is put a little title for our flow diagram, our flow chart, just so that we know when we look back on this what it is referring to. So this is going to be called the life cycle of plants. And of course, because that's a subheading, I need to underline it. So I'm going to underline that with my book. If you've got a ruler at home, that would be much better. But if you don't, you can use anything straight, as long as you hold it firmly so it doesn't move, and you make sure your line is exactly on the little blue lines. Alright, so if you look at the statements, I'm going to read through it. You have a read through first and see if you can work out which one goes first. And I'm going to do the same. So pause the video now and have a little look through those. Okay, what did you think? Any ideas? I'm going to start with the 4th one down. And that says, moisture in the soil makes the seed germinate and start to grow. The seed coat softens and cracks, because that's the first thing that happens. The seed is under the ground in the soil, and the moisture makes it soft, and it cracks open, and first of all the little root comes out, and then the shoot comes out. So I'm going to write that on my book. Okay, so that's my first statement. And what we're making here is a flow chart. So after each statement, I'm going to use my ruler to draw a really small arrow, not a long arrow at all. Okay, and that shows me that these statements are in order. So it's a life cycle. So it's showing you the process of how a plant grows. So these arrows tell whoever's reading this that this is the first thing that happens, and then this is the next thing that happens. So I'm going to pause this now, and I'm going to let you get on with that, and then we can look at the answers later. Good luck! Welcome back, Year 3. How did you find that task? I found it a bit tricky actually, but every time I looked at every statement and I just thought, which one must come before the other? So it's really important to read through these really carefully. So we know that the first one is that moisture in the soil makes the seed germinate and start to grow, and the seed coat softens and cracks. What do we think comes next? Okay, so I've made this one already, which I think is the correct order. So let's read through these now and see if they make sense. Moisture in the soil makes the seed germinate and start to grow. The seed coat softens and cracks. Then, a root grows out from the seed into the soil. More root shoots grow off the first root. Then, the shoot grows up out of the seed, pushing through the soil. Water, which the roots have absorbed, helps the shoot to stay upright and to grow. The shoot continues to grow. Other shoots start to grow off it, and leaves start to appear. The plant uses mineral salts from the soil to make chlorophyll in its leaves. It can now make food for itself. Does that sound like it makes sense? Because to me it does. Alright, so have a read through that. Once again, once you've finished with this video, talk to the people in your house and try to explain to them exactly the process of growth for a plant. So talk about where the water is absorbed, how it's transported through the stem, what happens in the leaves, how does photosynthesis work. And if you practice talking about this to your family, you'll find that you remember it a lot better than just writing it down once. Okay, well that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing all the work that you get up to.